Our final guest speaker this evening is Stephen Keith, and he is the CEO at Labrador Uranium, who are listed on the Canadian and the OTCQB stock exchanges. LUR are undertaking a drilling and exploration program on their 139,000 hectare CMB, or Central Mineral Belt property in Labrador, Newfoundland, which, as we all know, is in Canada. You knew that, didn't you? And you probably don't know this, they're using machine learning to analyze 50 years of historical mining data from the area, which all sounds very clever, and I'm intrigued. I want to know more. All against the backdrop of rising uranium prices in 2021 and 2022. I do believe we're at a 10-year high, give or take. So the FT said in the middle of September. So uranium's pretty hot at the moment, and potentially about to hit a super cycle. We're delighted to welcome Stephen Keith, CEO, and he's speaking live. Where are you speaking live from, Stephen?
Toronto, Canada, Donald.
There's only one place in the world, Stephen, and that's Toronto, Canada.
Well, we like to think so, but sometimes I'm proven wrong.
I can't believe there's anywhere better than Toronto.
Well, you know, come on over, I'll tour you around.
Fantastic, I'm on my way. All right, Stephen, over to you.
Well, thank you, Donald, and thank you everyone for joining us. So, look, I'll walk you through the story. I'm going to do it relatively quickly. I find the best parts of these sorts of fora are the Q&A, so I want to make sure that we get there and give people enough time to ask some questions. So I'm actually going to look at my phone, as I'm doing right now, to set a timer such that I do not offend anyone on the timing. So look, Labrador Uranium, we're a new company. We were listed only in March of 2022, so we're not even a year old. We're listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange, but we're also listed OTCQB in the United States and on the Frankfurt Exchange. We are, as the name is fairly clear, we're focused on uranium exploration. We have taken control of a district-scale, target-rich mineral belt in Labrador, Canada, and with that comes about 50 years of historical information. This is a belt that has been looked at for decades, first for copper, more recently about 10 to 15 years ago for uranium, and some significant uranium discoveries were made in the last uranium cycle. But we, in the intervening time, with some of our partners, have put together and consolidated this massive belt that for the first time is in a single hand. And that is basically what we're looking at. So I will be making forward-looking statements. So, you know, please have a look at this disclaimer to make sure everyone's comfortable with it. And I'll launch into it. Look, I always like to start these things by looking from a 30,000-foot level and drilling down. So I always have to ask the question, why am I investing in this company? And look, uranium is an exceptional thing, but let's start with the most important thing as far as I'm concerned, which is the people. And as much as I want to say that's me, it's really about the entire team and the board of directors. We have a group of established company builders here. As you'll see in a second, our board of directors is made up of individuals who have built companies before, done very well by their shareholders. We have a long track record in uranium as well. So when we built Labrador Uranium, it was actually a spin out of Consolidated Uranium. We took their Morin Lake asset out of Labrador. That is an asset with historical uranium and vanadium resource that we plan to grow. But with that, we also did a deal with Altius Minerals. Altius is a very successful group of asset generators. They're also a royalty company. And they put together about 139,000 hectares of land in the Central Mineral Belt. Again, a region that has been explored for 50 years. So we've got Altius that we're working with, Consolidated Uranium, and we also bought an asset from Mega Uranium. We do have a track record of creating not just companies, but value for shareholders. And yes, we do have this group on the board that understands the market and how to build companies and protect shareholders. But more importantly, we are an exploration company. So we have built this out with an exploration focus. And we've got a great team that I'll look at there with deep experience, though, in uranium and in Labrador specifically. We do believe that this is Canada's next great uranium region. Why do we think that? First and foremost, in the last uranium boom, Aurora Energy was, well, they've now been bought out by Paladin. made a discovery of a greater than 100 million pound uranium project on the eastern end of this belt. So at the very east end of this 125-kilometer long belt that we control is a greater than 100 million pound uranium deposit. So that's Paladin, and they've started work there again this year. I think once they got the Langer-Heinrich project up and running, or the development of it moving forward, they started to focus here again. So they're doing exploration here. We have uranium on our Morin Lake project that is a known historical resource, and in between those two, so over 100 kilometers, there are dozens of clear uranium, but also copper, IOCG known occurrences. When Altius put this package together before we took it over from them, they had identified 146 targets that were worth looking at. So that is historical data, geophysics, grab samples, drill samples. We know that there is mineralization here. It's a very exciting place to be. And again, we do start with a historical resource. And then, it's always nice to be in the middle of something great. This is a really good, well-timed opportunity. Uranium is moving very quickly. There's a global shift towards this green economy, and uranium is going to play a fundamental role in that. And we will offer great exposure to that and what we expect to be not just a single project, but multiple projects. And I'll walk you all through that. So we'll go to the next page here. Very brief company snapshot. Today, we're sitting around 58 million shares outstanding. Cash balance sitting around 14 million. At the end of the year, we expect to probably still have over $10 million in the bank. So we're in very good shape as an exploration company, not just to do the work we want to do this year, but to move this forward next year. We've got an exceptional group of shareholders. So even before we went public, we raised $10 million. And in total, between creating the company in October of last year and our listing in March, we raised about $20 million. We did that mostly through long, uranium-only institutions, like big, large believers in the uranium boom. We have a great retail base that came out of spinning out the shares for the asset we bought to Consolidated Uranium. Mega Uranium is a strategic holder, as is Altius Minerals. It's a really good group of people. And we've already got some research coverage out there. We think it's a great start. I think people, look, we are an exploration company. We are not going to have a mine built here a year or two from now, right? So we've really got to focus on making discoveries. We have money, we have property, but our job now is to make discoveries. And how are we going to do that? So on the board side, that's the side that's going to protect the money, develop the strategy, and make sure we do the right things for our shareholders. Phil Williams is our executive chairman. He's also the CEO of Consolidated Uranium. That was where we came out of. Richard Patricio, CEO of Mega Uranium. Again, both of them are very long uranium. They've been in the space for quite a long time. Actually, when I was an investment banker, Phil was the research analyst at the bank who was covering uranium. What was that, 2010, I guess. So, and then we've also got Justin Reed on the board. For those of you who don't know Justin is the CEO of Troilus Gold. He has run several public companies before. And oddly enough, he and I actually were both running fertilizer company in Brazil at the same time around 10 years ago. And then Brigitte Bernesh brings not just a financial acumen on the accounting side, and someone which is very important to us and to any board. She also brings independence, which is critically important. But most importantly, we need to make discoveries. And how are we going to do that? Because of the nature of these assets, we've looked at exploration from 2 points of view. Firstly, we have the hard on-the-ground exploration. That's being run by Nancy Normore. She's our director of exploration. She's worked for over 18 years in exploration. We pulled her out of Voisey's Bay, so she's got deep experience in Labrador, but she's also worked for quite a long time in uranium exploration. She's out there in the field developing our program with Matt Melnick helping her out. He's our consulting geologist and QP, and he's had dozens of discoveries under him. But the other side of this is really important for us to focus on is we do have over 50 years of data in this belt. All these properties, and you'll see how broken up it is in a second, all these properties have been in dozens of hands. So no one has ever looked at this as a singular project before, a singular piece of land, and we can. So we've been able to pull out that 50 years of data, look at this land package in a way no one else has. And what we're doing is we're building our own internal machine learning program, so artificial intelligence, in order to go through all that historical data to come up with some very clear targets. Because we have so much land and so much work to do. This is going to make that a lot shorter and easier for us. And we have the experience. So Paul Pearson at the top of the list there, Drew Heisman at the bottom, both of them, lots of experience in geology, in the field. You know, Paul's been at this for 35 years, Drew for 15. But just as importantly, they've also been working in machine learning. So Paul won the Galler Prize several years ago, which was looking at applying machine learning and artificial intelligence to exploration and discovery. Drew Heisman and his team won an award at this year's PDAC, an Emerging Explorers Award, again, for doing the same thing, applying machine learning to exploration. And we think that that's going to provide a massive advantage to us in this huge area that we have. So look, Labrador is a terrific place to be. Newfoundland Labrador is considered the 8th best place to invest in mining in the world, according to the Fraser Institute. There are world-class large-scale mining operations in Labrador already. So the Voisey's Bay project in the north there, most people are aware of it. It's got to be one of the richest nickel deposits in the world. That's being run by Vale. In the province as well, we've got things like Rio Tinto's Carol Lake iron ore mine. There's a lot in this area. It's quite resource rich. It's very friendly and it's very politically stable. So this is a great place to be. And as we look at global geopolitics, it's even a better place to be relative to a lot of the jurisdictions people are looking for uranium. And uranium for me it's a fairly, look, I try to look at things as simplistically as possible from a supply and demand point of view. I've worked in the uranium sector, in the exploration sector, in the development sector for a long time. I've also worked in renewable energy for quite a while. I'm a fan of renewable energy. The trick is this: run-of-river hydro, solar, wind, those can only provide energy, 33% of the time from the majority of those projects. You can't fire industry or cities off of that kind of availability of power. So we need baseload power. But if it has to be clean, what is our choice? And the only real choice today is nuclear power. And it's moving. China's building dozens of reactors. The EU has declared nuclear energy to be a clean, green energy. More than 50% of the American green energy mix is nuclear. It continues to grow. You know, we're looking at a situation where we're going to almost double nuclear capacity in the next 10 years or so. And we need to find uranium. Here in the Central Mineral Belt, we have uranium. We've got much more than that too. The entire belt's about 260 kilometers long. We control 125 kilometers of that. It is a junction of 4 major geological belts. What has that done? It does 2 things for us. It has brought many of those fluids to surface that bring your coppers, your gold, that sort of thing into the system. But also you've got those structures like from that faulting and folding that's occurred, again, 4 different mountain building phases. And that's where you're getting the traps for the uranium. You need traps for uranium, and we have that. And that's been proven because, once again, we have Paladin's 100 million pound plus Michelin deposit. We've got our 20 plus million pounds of uranium equivalent at our Morin Lake deposit. And there's multiple other projects that have been identified in between. So this is a really mineral rich belt. It's important to also remember the first sort of 30 to 40 years of exploration in this area was in copper. There are dozens and dozens of copper showings along this belt that we have. And if you look even at our historical resource at Morin Lake, that comes with a vanadium resource as well. So this is mineral rich, but it is a big piece of land, and we've got to figure out what to do with it. We do have this dominant land position. So if you look at this page, you can see those lines. This has been multiple claims in multiple hands for 50 years. We've put it all together. And what I want to draw your attention to is every one of the black dots on that page is a known uranium occurrence. And so we own everything that's colored in here. Here's Paladin's Michelin Lake deposit, and they've got Jacques Lake over here. This is our Mustang Lake project. Our Morin Lake project is this red star here. So again, about 20 million pounds uranium equivalent. But all of this here, northeast and southwest, are clear uranium showings. That looks really exciting for us to keep and continue growing these resources till it becomes something more meaningful. But it's a really exciting area to be in. And this just sort of hits that point on this page here. Again, is every one of these white rectangles points to a known uranium occurrence, including several known deposits. So that's what we control. And now we have to put this or make the discoveries such that these can be economic deposits. Michelin probably is one already. The economics haven't been done on it, but Paladin is now starting to do work there again. Morin Lake is looking really good, but we do have to grow that. At the present size, it's not good enough, but we do believe we will grow it. And this page here is also quite exciting. So here on the left, how are we doing our targeting? We've got all this historical data of the mineral occurrence, what's happening in the water, the geochemistry, the historical drill holes. But what I want to point to is this. All those green dots here on that map are the known uranium. So, but what's also just as important is look at all those red dots. Every one of those red dots is a known copper occurrence. So you see these parallel structures. And if you were to look at this geologically, there are huge structures that underlie this from which a lot of this comes from. So the potential of making many more discoveries or finding more projects is really exciting here. But once again, our job now is to put that money in the ground to make those discoveries. But other than that, we are also applying this modern data-focused approach. That modern data-focused approach, what is that? It's machine learning. We have 50 years of data. We've got to learn what to do with it. So how do we process that data, clean it up so that we can enter it into the machine to do something with, but more importantly, or as importantly, we have to teach the machine what it's looking for. The nice thing is we have models in this basin already, again, like Michelin and Morin Lake. So we can already see what, from indicator minerals, the types of structures we're looking for, to ages and geology, the different geophysical patterns that this shows. And so when you combine all that historical data with knowing what's controlling these deposits, both here and elsewhere, what will come out of that? And it's a time, it takes time because it's a lot of data to crunch. But what comes out of that will be specific targets and what we're calling projects. So refining 146 known targets into known projects. It's not going to be 146 projects. That's crazy. But a lot of those are in a certain area. If you recall that map here, it's where these clusters occur that you might end up having a singular project that could be a mine in the future. And that's what we're looking for. And we want multiples of these and do believe that that is what this basin has. So we start with Morin Lake. It's a known uranium deposit. There's both a uranium and vanadium resource here. It is open along strike and at depth. Not that we want to go too deep. Why? Because the grades of this, one thing to really realize when you're looking at uranium, look, there are operating uranium mines in the world at under 200 parts per million uranium, right? So we're sitting at 300, 350 parts per million, very similar to what they're mining in places like Namibia as well. But at these grades, you don't want to be going too deep. So we're looking for shallow projects, things that come to surface, that hold together nicely. So we're testing this along strike, we're testing this along dip, and hopefully looking to grow this. And then the questions we're asking is this a singular deposit that grows, much like what Aurora did and what Paladin did with theirs, taking it from 30 million to 100 million pounds? Is it a single deposit or multiples? And you'd have to apply a hub and spoke model, again, much like what they're doing at Michelin. We will see, but we know that this is here. We know that it grows, and now that's what we're focused on for now. And this year's exploration program has been focused here. So there's our field camp. It's our inaugural camp. So remember, we only listed this company in March of this year. So, and Labrador has a very set exploration season for where it is. So you're looking mid-July to mid-October. But having listed in March, we were able to get our permits from both the provincial government and the local Indigenous government. We were able to get our contracts and our team out there and start that exploration work. We've already identified 3 areas that we're really excited about. So this red star here is the Morin Lake project. Well, that red oval is where we think it extends to and where we're going to be exploring to grow that asset. Up in the northeast, there is the Anna Lake project. Anna Lake itself is a small deposit owned by a third party. It's about 5 million pounds of historical uranium. But all around that are incredible showings of copper and uranium throughout that entire valley, and we control everything around it. So it looks like something is coming together there. And then Mustang Lake over here is a deposit, is a project that it's straddled by Michelin and Jacques Lake, and it's the exact same rocks at depth, and uranium has been hit in drill holes there historically. So that's what we're looking at now. That Jacques Lake camp is our existing camp where we're flying out of. And you'll see in the bottom left here of this map, of that inset map, where we're looking at. So we've got not just uranium targets that we're drilling and exploring, but we've also come up with some targets for iron ore, copper, gold, so IOCG. We were expecting that both because of the structure and the type of mineralogy we're seeing, but we're really excited to get in there and start drilling that. And that's the first fruit of that machine learning program. And something that's worth talking about just a little bit here is we are uranium. We talk a bit about IOCGs, but one thing to remember is IOCG projects can be very exciting for uranium. One of the world's largest uranium projects, if not the largest, I know it's close, is Olympic Dam in Australia, which is an IOCG project. So this is not against our goals. It actually fits really nicely. And again, if we're not looking for a single deposit, we think and hope that there are multiple deposits in this region. And that's what we hope to put together. So Mustang Lake, I gave you a bit of a summary there on the last page. This is hit over 9 meters uranium mineralization downhole in the same rocks as you see at Michelin and Jacques Lake. We'll be doing some geophysics there this winter and getting that ready for drilling next year. We also have Morin Lake, like I talked about. And this is what we're trying to do. So Aurora Energy, when they had Michelin at the beginning, had a very similar story to ours. We're starting with the 20 million pound historical resource. They started around 30 million pounds. Altius Minerals is one of the groups that put that asset package together. Same with what we have here was done by Altius. And what you'll notice is this thing soared. This thing went to $1.3 billion in market cap. Every drill campaign they had continued to add pound after pound after pound of uranium. And it helped that the market price went up of uranium in that time. However, what's also interesting is, yes, when uranium went down, so did the company's value. At a certain point in time, and it has been lifted, so we don't have to worry about it anymore, but while the Inuit were working on self-government, there was a moratorium in uranium in this region. So that did tank the stock of Aurora at the time. But even with the moratorium on uranium at the time and a sinking uranium price, Paladin bought this thing for $261 million. So there's very real value in the ground. And now they're back in this area, having worked out what they're doing in Namibia with Langer Heinrich. They're now starting to spend money again in this region. And we think that we're going to see a lot more come into this basin. It's a simple story, and it's exactly the sort of thing we're trying to do, but we're actually trying to do it on multiple fronts. We're hoping we have more than one deposit and that we can continue to do this. I'm not going to spend time on the next 2 pages other than to say, other than this huge land package that we have, that with all these exciting targets, there is another project that we have up north of us called Newfoundland. It's very new. It's a very new discovery. It's a new belt. We're not spending a ton of time on it now, but it is exciting in that it has 22 occurrences of uranium. The uraninite veins come right up to surface. The grades look really good, but no modern exploration has really been done here. All we know is that there's a lot of uranium in the system, and it merits some spending and some exploration work to be done. So look, we are less than a year old. In that time, we put together almost 140,000 hectares of land. We've generated over 140 uranium and IOCG targets, 70% of which are ranked high to moderate probability targets. We started our inaugural drill program, so we're out there drilling right now. We won't get as much drilling done as we'd hoped just due to weather and things like hurricanes, and the machine learning is already starting to generate results and targets for us. So as we move forward into next year and beyond, we're well financed. We're going to close this year out with more than $10 million in the bank account. We're listed in the US and in Frankfurt as well as in Canada. We've got a great shareholder base. So as I like to say, now our job is to just do the work. It's a professional geological group. We've got to put the money in the ground. We control a district scale of a well-known multi-commodity metal belt. We have a historic resource base that we can grow from with lots of discovery potential in and around that. Really good shareholder base, and it's led by a proven team. Like both the board and the geologists that we have had a great track record of building companies and making discoveries. So now we just want to make this as simple as possible. Put the money in the ground and make those discoveries. And that's where I'm going to leave it, everybody. I'm going to stop sharing and hand it back over to you, Donald, and see where we go from there. Thank you.
Okay, Stephen, thank you. My goodness, that was interesting. And you said beforehand that you can talk, and you certainly can talk.
Did I miss my time target?
No, not bad. Not as bad as everybody else tonight. Yes. Okay, let's start with the uranium supercycle. Are you a believer? Do you think within the next 2 years that uranium will will, demand will exceed supply significantly?
I really do, actually. Like, if you look at the statistics of what's coming out of not just China, right? You're looking at dozens of reactors being built there. You're starting to see Japan look at nuclear reactors again. The US is putting money and strategic money back into nuclear reactors. A lot of time and efforts going into small modular reactors, which will open that up globally because it makes people feel more comfortable. And again, if we are going to go carbon neutral, there really is no choice, right? This battery revolution is very exciting, but you have to charge a battery. Where is the electricity coming from? It can't come from coal, can't come from oil and gas. It's really hard to build large hydro nowadays, right? To get that permitted. Nuclear really is that thing. And if you just look at the stuff that's in development now, and these might be a little out of date, but the numbers I look at is 19 reactors are under construction right now. Over 40 are looking at being permitted right now or in the permitting process, and over 150 have been announced. So we're looking at over 200 reactors that have been announced. We're looking at over 200 gigawatts of power. And then you add to that global geopolitics, right? Like, we're getting our uranium from all these sources. Well, all of a sudden we start thinking, and I'm not trying to make my own judgment on this, but are we going to continue to buy everything from places like Kazakhstan, or do we want it from safer jurisdictions like Labrador? There's always going to be a hybrid. The majority of the processed uranium coming out of Russia, that has to change. So I am a big believer, and I think this has very long, very sustainable legs.
If there are 200 nuclear reactors in development or projected, where's the uranium? Where's the yellow cake going to come from?
That's the question, right? I think it looks like we're going to be almost doubling demand. And so we start with where are the nicest or sexiest projects in the world for uranium? That's Saskatchewan right now. If we're looking at projects like in our basin have between 300 and 800 ppm of uranium, they have like over 1%. Those are super rich deposits. You don't see that anywhere else in the world. You can't build that many mines in one area. They're extremely expensive and very hard to develop and work, but you will get stuff there. But then where else do you go? So you look at places like Namibia, Kazakhstan, Niger. Look, there's a lot of uranium in Niger. The French have had a lot of success developing projects in Niger. So I think we'll continue to see things like that. It's easily the scariest due diligence trip I've done in my entire life. So I don't plan on going to places like that. I like safe jurisdictions, and I like places that are easy to buy from, especially strategically. I think you do have to keep those things in mind. Okay.
Well, Mark Proudfoot says that you're interesting and that he wants to know more about you. So that's good. That's a success. You've got a follower. He's slightly cynical about machine learning, though. He says, how does a new company get the data to analyze? Let's break it down into parts. First of all, how does a company get the data to analyze? You've got 50 years of historical mining. Where did it come from? Did you have to buy it?
No, because almost all this, the reason we were able to get this is between the last uranium boom and when this land package was put together, mostly by Altius Minerals, most of those companies had walked away. So when the junior mining boom, uranium exploration boom died, sort of, what was that, 2012 or so, they couldn't raise money anymore. So people had to drop their land. And again, remember when the Nunat-Siabat government was being formed, so the Inuit were forming their own self-government. Between the point where they announced that self-government starting and the formation of it, they stopped all uranium work. So like the land was dropped and it went away, but that meant all that data becomes public data. So now we can have it all. So we were able to get, now you have to chase some people down. Not all the data is there. It's very complicated, and some of it's just garbage, right? You need to be able to get it set up in a form that fits, and it is a bit of a nightmare to try to put everything together to fit, because people sometimes use different grids and whatnot. But that is exactly why you need the individuals who know what they're doing. This can't just be, for lack of better terms, tech geeks who are just inputting data. You need to have trained geologists who know what they're looking at. They need to know how to train the machine as well. So what are the things that are controlling, say, a uranium or IOCG deposit? What types of structures we're looking for? What are the geophysical tells? What are the other tells that we're looking for geologically and whatnot? So you strip that data out of what's old, right? And you start inputting that in, as well as you know what's controlling these structures. That's what you're teaching the machine and telling
You
it
have
to
to
look.
have, you have to have people inputting data who are pretty on it. It's not just
Yeah.
students straight out of university, is it?
No, and it's a nightmare. Like it is a lot of work. And a lot of the data is going to be garbage coming in, but it is also an iterative process, right? It's not some magic black box. So as we get data this year, we'll put more in, because again, it's just such a huge area to look at. To try to prospect that as traditionally is almost impossible. But now that we can sort of look up from the table, everyone used to have these smaller pieces of land. We now have this huge piece of land. So how do we put it together? Okay, this geophysics exists, but maybe there's no large airborne gravity. So maybe next year we go and shoot a few $1 million of airborne gravity to see how it sticks together. Looking for these deep structures for the IOCGs. You know, there's a lot of ground cover here. So the uranium doesn't always scream at you. So what else are you looking for? So look, it's a very fair comment. It is not straightforward. It is not easy. But if you have the individuals and support to do that and know what you're doing, it can be exceptional. Seeing more and more people get into it. We're seeing companies have success with it. We've seen companies fail at it. Now, my suggestion is a lot of the failure was a lot of that initial stuff, as I said earlier, where it was more tech geeks getting data and try to push something out the other end. You really need the geologists.
Okay, final question. I'm sorry, we're genuinely out of time. It's been fantastic, but we are out of time. So one last question, news flow. This is part of your pitch to investors, really, because they're always looking for inflection points in the share price. When can we expect, what can we expect from Labrador Uranium in terms of news flow in the coming months?
So look, again, we're early stage, so we're not going to have any world beaters necessarily, but we do have a lot of news coming. So we're just wrapping up that inaugural field program. So we'll be getting the assays probably end of the year. We haven't shipped those out. Those assays are targeting not just the existing mineral resource, but trying to extend it. What we really want to look for isn't, now I'd love to find 100 meters of 2% uranium, but what we're actually trying to do is, are we seeing that Morin Lake, just on the Morin Lake drilling on its own, are we seeing that can grow? Because, so that's the first set of results that we're doing, because that growth is what's important. That grade can be a mine near surface, but not at this size. It needs to grow. So are we showing that it can grow? And we do think we can show that. Are we showing that we're hitting uranium? Yes. The other thing that we're looking at is, what are the other commodities that are coming in with this? Not a lot of guys have looked at the copper that comes with this. And one of the things you got to think about is, if you're going to build a mine in an area like this, they're not going to be low cost. So can I juice my revenue by having one or two other commodities that are in high demand, like a copper or something? All of a sudden that lowers my uranium operating cost. Are there other things in great demand? So I think we're looking for some of that. So there's obviously the assays and the results of the exploration program. There will be an output on the machine learning with a more up-to-date map of new targets, not just what we've shown before, but saying this is why we think there's a project here and where our drilling will go. And then I expect, look, we've consolidated a lot of land in this area. There's a lot of historical work, and hopefully we can continue to consolidate that. We want to keep adding pounds and pounds of uranium to our book. And then we want to just grow this. We do believe this is a district. We do believe there are multiple projects. So that's what we're trying to drive. We need to be able to show investors that is coming. It will take a while to drill these out into significant resources, but the biggest thing to see is, are we showing that progress? And I think over the next few months, that'll be the key driver.
Okay, Stephen King, CEO of Labrador Uranium. I think we concur with Mark Proudfoot. You're one to watch. We'll put you on a watch list. Thank you so much, Stephen. That was fantastic.